Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside the latest edition of Across the Cavs on this August 30th, 2023. We're still, 50 some odd days from Cavs basketball, but that's okay because August 30th, a notable day in Cavs history. It was the last day for Shawn Kemp as a Cav that we shipped him off to Portland in a 3-team deal. Welcome aboard Clarence Weatherspoon and the headbanded Chris Gatling. Kyrie Irving goes to Boston on this day in 2017. Hello, Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, the almighty Ante Zizic, and future number 8 pick Colin Sexton. Couple of Cleveland baseball. Cliff Lee turns 45, and Roberto Hernandez, a.k.a. Fausto Carmona, if Roberto Hernandez was his real name, who knows, he turns 43. So we are told. But we got a lot to come. You'll see to my right is Garrett Bush, introducing him in just a moment on Across the Cavs on Network 216. All right, folks, welcome back. Here he is in the flesh, Garrett Bush. We tried to do this a few weeks ago. Both our schedules kind of mishmash, but it is a pleasure. Before the craziness of sports really comes back with football and basketball, glad we could get you on today.
Listen, I was looking forward to it. We had a little schedule mix-up, but I'm glad to be on Network 216 talking a little things about Cavs, get into some Browns, all things. Anything you want to get into, we will get into today. So thank you for having me on the platform.
Yeah, thank you, Garrett. Now, you've been doing a lot of really cool things. We'll talk about that in a sec, but tell our viewers first, how did you first get involved in sports as a producer and then eventually work your way into being a really prolific on-air host?
Man, I got out of school. I went to OU, Ohio University, and I thought I wanted to be a financial advisor. The stock market kind of crashed, and I was like, I don't want to do that anyway. So I came back from North Carolina. I lived in North Carolina, and I lived in Charlotte, came back here. And I started selling like season tickets for the Guardians. That didn't really work out. I really didn't like doing that. And then, so I decided one day I was at home after I got laid off from doing that. I was at home watching this guy named Bruce Drennan. It's a local guy. All bets are off or whatever. And I was watching, I would just tape a show every day. He's retired now, but he was talking about sports, and a guy called and said, "Hey, Bruce, I want to be a sports anchor one day. I want to do what you do. What start would you get? How would you go about it?" He told him to go to Ohio Media School. Now, for me, it was a little different. I had already had a bachelor's degree, and I already had, I'd been done with college, but I knew I wasn't able to get any financial aid or anything. So I took my last checks that I had, went to Ohio Media School. I did a 10-month program over there. I interned at ESPN Cleveland for about a year. And then after I was done, lucky enough for me, 92.3 The Fan came on the board. This is 12th year on right now. So I've been working at 92.3 The Fan for 12 years. Started off as a producer and a board op. Funny story, my program director reminded me this. He said, "You said you could run a board." I said, "Of course I said I could run a board. I couldn't run no board, but it's all about getting your foot in the door, right?" So we parlayed. I began, after a couple of years, I got good at that and told him one day I really wanted to work on air. I didn't have very many shifts to start with, but it worked into getting my first opportunity and shot. And then I, worked at that, continued to do it. And I came up with this concept called the barbershop, and we just continued to do it. And I cut my teeth in YouTube. And from there, I got other opportunities being on Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, still do my radio show. I was able to do a radio show on the 92.3 The Fan. It's been on there for, I want to say we've been in the barbershop like 6 years on the weekend. So just doing that and just, making the circuits and talking to people. And I progressed since then. So it's been a blessing.
And what's been your favorite part now, being at the Fan for so long? You're really starting to get consistent. Was it more now? It's probably more routine than it was. You're still learning as you go. But what's been your favorite part being there so long?
I would say, man, the best part for me is kind of coming up with a different blueprint. I was probably one of the first people to kind of start on YouTube, or just to start cultivating a fan base or come with a complete thought process. Right now, I own 3 businesses. I have the barbershop clothing and merchandise line. We did really well last year. We moved over $10,000 in just merchandise, just people that were interested in the program. I got another business. I do immigration businesses, and I just do a lot of different things. And one of the things I'm proud of is there's a blueprint now that you can get on the radio. You could do other things by doing exactly what you're doing now, Zach. It's like creating and cultivating a fan base, being consistent, being innovative, telling the truth, and coming up with creative content. Now you can look at guys that are on the internet that can have 10, 12,000, 14,000, 15,000 views, and major publications who are just now getting in that space only have 500. It just goes to show you that if you're with the times and you put that work in, you can be in the game. You don't have to wait for somebody to give you a platform. You can create your own platform. So that's what I'm most excited and I would guess proud about.
Yeah, and the digital age is truly something else that we could both be here together. You see how many people, no matter where they're located, can hop on with folks across the map, across the country, across the world. Just such a cool way to see things come together. And obviously, there's always going to be that beautiful in-person aspect. We're all in the studio, we're all together. But just the expansion in the world of possibility that now exists is definitely something cool. And I'm glad, we're able to do this and to be able to have this show. I was a Cavs fan for a long time before I ever hopped on a pod to actually talk about the fandom. So this, for me, has definitely unlocked an area where I can really kind of dive deeper, learn more, and try and preach things I didn't know before to an audience of folks that are just hungry to try and learn as much as they can about the organization and the team.
Yeah, that's you said it perfectly. It's like, there's no barriers. Like, there's no barrier to entry. It's like, hey, as long as you got a camera, a microphone, and something to say, you could do creative content, and it's cool to be able to, connect with people no matter where they are. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll finish this part off, and then we'll head into Cavs. But you just did a podcast for The Ringer with Bill Simmons, Danny Hernandez. How did that come about, and how exciting was it to hop on with them?
Man, it was, like I said, it was a blessing, man. Everything I try to do is like a grassroots effort. And so I'm really diligent in trying to, when people reach out to me to do something, even if it's Bill Simmons or it's you or it's somebody at the elementary school, like I try to answer that because I believe in, this is a community of people. So I try to, not treat anybody any better or any worse. And I think when you do that, it comes back to you. So I was just, I was at a couple weeks ago, I was at my family reunion, and I got a DM from Bill Simmons, and I was just like, nowadays you can't even tell because the check mark, you'd be like, I don't even know. So I went and looked, and he had like 5.5 million followers. I was like, yeah, this is probably him, because I didn't believe it at first. And I just kind of, you know what I'm saying? We didn't set anything up then. He just said, and which I appreciated, was like, he just said he was a fan of what I did. And I just said a salute because, I've been watching Bill since Grantland and him being on with the NBA Finals and, just growing up on that. So, I just saluted him and said, thanks for reaching out. It mean a lot. And then, he reached out to me a couple of days ago, and I was actually at my aunt's wedding, and I didn't check my DM. So it was like he hit me up, and it was like 2 days later, and I'm like, I'm just hitting back, like, my bad, because I don't really check regularly, as you know, right? So trying to get a hold of me on Twitter, it's like, all right, let me go back and get it. So I just gave him my phone number, and he was just like, cool, I'm gonna text you. And he's like, hey, can you come on like yesterday? And I'm like, bet, like, let's do it. So, basically, I went on, and the cool thing about him was, like, he was just mad cool. Like, we just talked about sports. So it was like, two dudes in a bar, two dudes meeting, telling their experiences about sports. So he was mad cool, just really down to earth. We talked about sports. We talked about a bunch of things. If you guys want to listen to that, or you can go watch it, it's on my Twitter page at gbush91. And it's pinned at the top so you can listen to it. But overall, it's really cool to meet somebody that you looked up to, and they're actually a better person than what you thought they would be, because that doesn't happen all the time. So I was just really, really excited about it, and it's a blessing to be able to go on a platform that large. So it was cool, man.
As I always like to say, it's onwards and upwards. Every opportunity, no matter how big, how small, you're getting on air, you're getting yourself out there, and it's a stepping stone to getting Bill Simmons. Yeah. That's really exciting, and looking forward to listening to that after we're finished today. But
It's possible. Like I tell, listen, don't let it. That's the coolest thing. Like I'm a regular dude. It's possible. Like you could be doing a podcast with me. You could be doing a podcast next week with Michael Wilbon or Stephen A. Smith. And the cool thing about it is, starting from this platform, I had an opportunity and this just happened for me. This ain't like the last 6 months I've interviewed, I don't know, Gilbert Arenas. I've talked to Stephen A. Smith, Jason Whitlock. I've been on like all these different places. Obviously, I got to go on with one of the biggest platforms, just one-on-one with Bill Simmons. But it's possible you could do it too. It's just hard work and just consistently putting out good content, and it's possible for anybody, man.
Hey, every day, and I'll close this note with this. When I was in college, you talk about getting your start. The thing that I think really got me going is I've been doing play-by-play for a long time, and it was when I was a junior in college. I joined the mentorship program at my school, and the challenge was to try and interview every NBA announcer for all 30 teams. And within 10 months, I had a connection base I never thought was possible, and to be able to comfortably have these conversations. And then meeting some in person, I think you also hit that beautifully, because it's very intimidating on the surface. But once you get on with them and you both know ball, you know what you're talking about, you're passionate about it. It's really just two people. Yes, they might be on different levels of their careers at the moment. You're just hashing it up with someone slicing it up. You're slicing it up with someone that loves what they're doing. And so I think at the end of the day, as you move forward, it's just a great thing to know that everybody started in the same spot. And then once they get there, they remember where they started. You're just two dudes having a great conversation.
I think of it this way, in a really cool way. And I don't know if anybody has explained this to you. If vicariously, if I got interviewed by Bill Simmons, but yet still I am here with you doing the interview, then that means vicariously, there's really no difference between you, me, or Bill Simmons, right? So you got to be truthful. We're on the same level. Like to be truthful, like it's just all one big continuum. So no one's higher than other. But I think it's always great to always realize that, yes, when you do get a place, I thought the coolest part was he didn't have to put me on there. Like he could have picked anybody to put on that podcast, but he gave opportunities to a kid that he liked, and he reached out and said, hey, I like your talent. And so I try to pay that forward to anybody else. And now vicariously, when you get big, because you're going to get there, now that's your job to give back to the younger and the newer guys coming up too. So
that's the beauty of it, man. Always will. And it was really cool. As soon as I graduated college, I talked to a lot of younger kids that were just starting where I went, and just such a fun world out there, honestly. Like you put the time in, it'll show. You're not just going to get there. You put the time in, but it's just great to be able to share everything you learn with other folks, then they do the same. And that's how it just keeps getting better and better and better with the people that come forward. And that's how we're seeing so many talented early 20-somethings getting on the obviously Malika Andrews, same age as I am. It's late 20s, top of the top on ESPN, the Iron Eagles son Noah. I think he's a year younger than I am. He's been the voice of the Clippers for 4 years. He's doing some great tennis coverage, has a great voice. Just so many great people in the industry, obviously. Some older. But then you have the younger, the Adam Amins and the Ryan Ruccos in their early, mid to early 30s, who are just kind of doing what some guys that took, like Tim Alcorn. We love Tim Alcorn. He had to persist till he was 56 to really get his dream opportunity. But he did what he loved, and eventually it did come. So that's
heck. I'm 42. It's just that's the great thing about this. If you love your craft and you continuously work on it and do it, you'll get to where you want to go.
Exactly, which is also what the Cleveland Cavaliers have certainly done to transition Garrett over these last
I like that transition. I like that. I see what you did.
From 22 wins to 44 in 2 seasons, up over 50 last year. So looking ahead, a lot of pressure on the team, certainly, to have more success. But who was your favorite off-season addition of the new names we brought in?
Well, listen, when you look at it, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they needed to be able to stretch the floor. They needed shooting from the outside. When you take a look at where their problems are, is when you started and you watch that series against the New York Knicks, you got an issue with, you got a guy in Jared Allen who's not a guy that's going to stretch the floor. He's not going to be a guy that's going to get his own shot. And so this was always a philosophical thing. Can you play Evan Mobley, who to this point, we expect he's going to be a unicorn and develop a shot, but he's still shooting in the 20% from beyond the arc. And you got, he can't really, at this point, take the ball 3 or 4 dribbles and finish at the rim. Jared Allen is more of an energy guy, rim runner, defense. They're great because they can play defense under the rim, and they can play they can play defense and switch off on guys and not lose too much on the pick and roll. And that helps if you got 2 small guards like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. But offensively, it just kind of shows you that they don't know if they could play those 2 together. I would venture to say no. So what they did is they went out and they got shooting. A guy like George Niang is a guy who I used to hate playing against the Sixers. I didn't like his face. I did not like the way he played. Every single time he got the ball, he just seemed to get the ball and knock down shots. And I was just like, it was just a horrible matchup. So when you go out and get him, I loved what they were able to do with that. But I like Max Strus.
Oh, yeah.
Loved it because he comes from an organization in the Heat. He's going to play a role, right? He's going to have to, I wouldn't say he's a great defender. He may be an average to above average defender. However, he knows how to play in the system. You can't play for the Heat if you can't cover anybody with Eric Spoelstra. So I love the fact that this guy has had finals experience, playing on the team, playing hard every single day. And I think he's going to come in. He understands the role. He'll fill the role with the Cavs. So you got 2 guys that can shoot over 30%, hopefully in the 40s. And you got 2 guys, one guy that probably will start for you, another guy coming off the bench. And now you can slot guys a little bit better. Now you don't have to have, guys coming off the bench that weren't supposed to be starting for you. Karis LeVert, obviously. Guys like that can be a little more comfortable, come off the bench and be a scorer. And now you have some shooting and things you can do where you don't have to pay necessarily Jared Allen. You could play Evan Mobley at the 5, maybe play with a stretch 4, and open up the court for Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So to me, the first guy that I really love is I love Max Strus. I like George Niang as well. But there is a rookie. I'm a big Imani Bates fan. Huge Imani Bates fan. We'll talk about him a little later on. I like him and Sam Merrill down at the Charge. So I'll be paying attention.
Very excited to watch both of those guys get their opportunities. Probably won't happen in the beginning. As soon as one guy goes down, we know Sam can take over. Cooked in Summer League, got a great end of the regular season.
Yep.
And we know that Imani Bates has the confidence, having had a year out of the spotlight, playing at a much smaller school in Central Michigan, or Eastern Michigan rather, as opposed to the big lights of Memphis and Penny Hardaway and Mike Miller. So I think that for him
Love Porter too. I like him too.
Yeah, Craig Porter also led Wichita State points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. Very few 6'2", 6'1", 6'3" guys will do that. And so my personal favorite addition we'll talk about finish would be not a new player, but a new type would be the confident Darius Garland to take 20 shots in the big game. And obviously he did that at times in the playoffs. Some days he's a little shy if there's too much traffic and he's only going to shoot at the end of the clock. So if I see a confident Darius Garland in big games taking nearly as many shots as Donovan Mitchell, I will be happy because we know he can make them. We know he can knock them down. He just has to be in his head properly saying, I can hit this. I don't have to be passive. I don't need 12 assists. It's okay to get 6 and add a couple extra buckets because that was one of many things that could have made a difference in the 4 Knicks losses last year.
And you know what's so crazy? We forget a little bit that this was the first year of them playing together. And when you have 2 really ball-dominant guys, the fact that they did it that well, I mean, you still got Darius Garland averaging 21 points a game, trying to figure out where his flow is. But we know if Darius Garland did not have Donovan Mitchell there, he can score 30. Darius Garland in his league can score 28, 29, 30 points a game, no problem. You look at what Darius Garland did to have some concessions. He sacrificed some of his game a little bit because of what Donovan Mitchell was. And all Donovan Mitchell did in his first year here was have his best year of his career. A second-team All-NBA, which is nothing to sneeze about, especially when you got the guards that you got here in the Eastern Conference with the guards in terms of, making the All-NBA team is extremely difficult. And so he averaged 28 points a game, 70. We all know 70 points. But Darius Garland is a guy who had 50 points as well this year. So, just figuring out where they need to go, playing more together. I think that they'll be more in sync. Because they still played a really good job. They did a really good job in the preseason and in the regular season. But when it came to the playoffs, I think those roles weren't clearly defined.
Yeah, absolutely. And Darius still had the same number of points per game on a higher 3-point percentage, only one less assist. That's considering that he just played his first year with another ball dominant guard named Donovan Mitchell. And so on that Donovan Mitchell front, Garrett, is he a valid MVP candidate this upcoming season?
He's going to have to. So he was going to have to elevate the Cavs to a different type of level. Could he be? I think he has the skill set to be an MVP candidate. I think he'll have the ability to put up the points to do that. But what they're going to have to be is impactful. Usually when you're talking about an MVP, right? These awards, I found out talking to Jason Lloyd and a lot of dudes in the industry, even guys like Chris Broussard, those guys, you know, they you got to warm it up first. Like Joel Embiid just won the MVP, right? Because it was a while where they want to see it. They don't want to flash in the pan. And then the next year, if you ball out again, they'll give it to you, right? Like, and so you see a situation where, you know, Jokic had back-to-back MVPs. They kind of was like, oh, we can't give it to him again. So we're going to give it to Joel Embiid. And so Joel Embiid had pretty much really like put work in 2 years prior to that. And you go back and look at what they were able to do. You take a look at Joel Embiid. He had 30 points the year before. He had average 30, came back again. He had an even better year. So I think Donovan Mitchell would have to do something like they would have to be the number one defensive team. And then they would have to be in the top 1, 2, 3 in offense. And they would probably have to have the best record in the East for him to do that. Now, is it possible? Sure, it's possible. I think the Cavs, if you look at what's happened so far, 76ers look like they're a team that could fall off a little bit because of the James Harden thing. I expect them to take a step back. You take a look at the Boston Celtics. How does it work out with Kristaps Porzingis? They lose a defensive-minded guy, and Marcus Smart. How is that going to work out? Is Porzingis going to be healthy? And then you still take a look at, the rest of the guys in the Eastern Conference, to see what you got. Who knows what the Hawks are going to be? There's a lot of different teams. The Raptors, they're in influx a little bit. So if the Cavs can get off to a good start and play well, and Mobley takes a step and Garland kind of takes a step, sure, they could be in that area. And if Donovan Mitchell is a guy who is getting 28, 30 a game, that they possibly could do that. But here's the problem. If Mobley is a defensive player of the year, caliber player, which he already came in third this year, and he's as a second year, if he's the defensive player of the year and he averages maybe 20 points a game, maybe 9, 10 rebounds, it's going to be hard to kind of not vote for Evan Mobley, who's the defensive player of the year candidate, giving you 20 and 10, being an anchor on a team. So it's kind of tough. So he could have some challenge from the younger guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be a great season once again for the Cavs. And you talk about Boston and you talk about Philly, Atlanta, Toronto, etc. But who do you think is the biggest threat? What's one team to the Cavs actually running out and winning 12 games in the playoffs and getting all the way to the finals? Who's that team that's really standing in the way the most?
I would have to say the Milwaukee Bucks. To me, they brought everybody back, which is all they really needed to do. You take a look at it. Giannis got hurt last year. He missed a couple of games. I think when you lose a series like that because he was out, you take a look at that. But if you watch the Cavs and the Bucks play last year, the Cavs or the Bucks versus anybody, nobody has an answer for him. He's at that point where they just don't. He's too big for Evan Mobley. He's too big for Jared Allen. He's a freight train in the lane. What's messing with them is the simple fact is that they can't keep their guys healthy. They can't keep people healthy. So for me, I would say it would be the Milwaukee Bucks. I think followed by the Boston Celtics. I do think it kind of works. Jaylen Brown and Tatum. We'll see how that works. But I do think Kristaps Porzingis gives them a different look. So I would say probably number one is the Milwaukee Bucks. Probably number two is the Boston Celtics.
And if the Cavs get into a playoff series with Kevin Love and the Miami Heat, who still may or may not be trading for a certain point guard, Can the Cavs withstand Miami in the 7-game series?
You know what? I think I think the Miami Heat were a nice story. That's why I was so mad at the Cavs, because I think the Miami Heat won on heart, grit. We just gonna get it done, and just old school ball. Like, they just basically willed themselves to the finals when everybody else folded up. And so I look at that team. If they can get Damian Lillard, and they can get Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets, who just seems to still get his old man game off. He's the old YMCA wreck, Jimmy Butler. I like what Bam Adebayo is now all of a sudden a point forward. He unlocked that badge in 2K in the playoffs. Like, I'm like, where did Bam Adebayo get this playmaker badge from at the top of the key? So this is your offense, and it was working. I think if you get there's tough squad. Here's the problem. I think if you get the Cavs and if Mobley takes a step, if Jared Allen, I like the roster, because I like the fact that you got 2 elite bigs that can switch on a lot of stuff. And they got shooting now. So the only thing that the Cavs really kind of lack a little bit, Ricky Rubio kind of, left, and we don't know what he's going to do, retire. So I don't know what you got as a backup point guard. They got the kid from Golden State.
Ty Jerome, yep.
Yeah, Ty Jerome. I liked him. I like him. He shoots the ball well from outside. Size, I like him a lot. And Sam Merrill. Listen, if you leave Sam, he's Merrill Lynch. Take it to the bank. Sam Merrill, if you let him open, it's hand down, man down. I'm telling you. I love Sam Merrill. I want to give him an opportunity to play. But I think in this series, I think the Cavs are a better team than them. Now, Dame Lillard can go en fuego. He can go crazy, and there's nothing you do about it. I just think that I like our 2 guards better than their small 2 guards, if that makes sense.
And the beauty of the Sam Merrill story, in short, I'm a big Matthew Dellavedova guy. Matthew Dellavedova goes to the Kings. He's fighting for the last roster spots between him and Sam Merrill. Delly makes the roster. Merrill gets cut. Not too long after, Merrill goes to the Charge, and then Merrill ends up signing with the Cavs, having a very impactful late regular season role and helping them to a Summer League title. Yes, he's already 27. He did get to the NBA a little late, but I think he has plenty to offer in the realm of, at the absolute least, making everyone a better shooter just watching him in practice. He did that with the Bucks. He already has the title under his belt. Just think having him around is great for everybody.
He's not missing. If you leave him on, that's a shot. He's not missing.
He Jason Capono with minutes played. I guess that's the way I look at it. Another former Cav who played all over the place, but was a guy that did win a couple of 3-point shootouts at the big stage. So last Cavs question here, Garrett. Then we're going to slide over to the dog pound. So of everybody we've talked about here, Jarrett, Darius, Strus, Donovan, Mobley, everyone, which one guy are you most excited to watch perform for the Wine and Gold this season?
Amani Bates. Like, that's crazy, right? Like, listen, I'm most interested in seeing Amani Bates because, look, I called it out prior to when the draft came. I showed it to my dad. I said, Dad, got this dude Amani Bates, man. He was playing in Memphis. He was like 17, bro. He's crazy long, 6'9". He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And so, me, I'm like I'm 42, but I still, like, my viewing habits are like 16-year-old kids from Brooklyn. Like, I still watch Ball is Life. And I'm like, I didn't see them come up like through the ranks. I didn't see them play the whole time. And so all these kids, I'm following them on Ball is Life or following them on the internet, whatever the case may be. And then he went to Eastern Michigan. I'm an OU guy, so I watched basketball. And the one thing I love about Imani Bates is his willingness to take certain shots. And I know what type of difficult shot makers look like. They don't grow on trees. I was there in 2018, 2017 when the Durant went to the Warriors. And it was just, we had a damn good team, but it didn't matter because they had Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Durant. And they was just firing from wherever they wanted to. And it was going in. I said, listen, if I could find me somebody to get that off, I am. Man, I watch these summer leagues. People talk, oh my goodness, Amani Bates. He's going to play for the Charge and he's never coming up to next year. I said, listen,
hold on.
Nah, we're gonna see what we talking about. I like the young kid, man. So he's not gonna come in here and start immediately. But one of the things I love is I love his competitiveness. I talked to Boobie Gibson, his coach. He said, man, this kid, he works hard. He runs through all the drills. And so we had Craig Porter Jr. on our show, and we talked to him. He was like, man, me and him talk all alike. So we got the two-way deals. He's like, man, this guy, I be forgetting sometimes. This kid's 19. He's 19 years old, man. And he be telling me stuff that I don't really see. And so I'm interested in seeing him. Might be a little later when he comes up, but that's the guy I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah, certainly excited to watch Imani Bates. And with Boobie, I think a lot of these charge guys, and then let's talk about the Cavs adding some veterans like Strus, Niang, and Damian Jones, all three of who had nothing when they got to the league and really had to work for any minutes they got, I think are the perfect role models for him to be around too. So I think new ads and some of the vets, so many guys on this Cavs team at that end of the rotation, even Dean Wade, who's had his flashes and could still, had to really work just to get on the roster, then to get into games. And as soon as he got those starting roles, I think we won our first 4 games a few years ago. As soon as he came in, and then the TJ McConnell steals game kind of wrecked his streak. He does so many guys that have been Lamar Stevens before.
Right.
Now, hoping he finds a role with some team. There's so many guys that can really – and even Jetty, who came in as kind of LeBron. He was LeBron's guy that first year. Got to go to those special workouts with LeBron and KD and Kawhi, and Phil Handy was running them. And just what they've all learned. And obviously he's gone, but I'm sure Jetty could have some conversations with Imani before the season starts, and he has to be a Spur officially about anything he learned in Cleveland and what he learned about his first season not playing. I think it's great that we have so many guys that weren't instant stars kind of at the back of that bench, because they all know what it takes, and they've all shined when they've had their chances, which is why they're in a position to be on a team that could be conference finals bound this season.
Yeah, I agree. They got the talent to do it. It's just all about whether it gels quickly. This year, I think there's a lot of pressure on JB Bickerstaff to put people in a position to do it. There's pressure on the youngest stars that are going to be max players, whether that's Garland, Mobley's, going to be a guy. And we just want to see that progression. We want to see you take that next step. And if those guys can take that next step, you definitely have a situation in which you can you could possibly see yourself in the finals and do some things like that.
I absolutely could. I'm very excited for the Cavs. We'll still have to wait till October 25th, but it'll be here before we know it.
Yes, it always seems like that. It's football, and then basketball creeps up on you like, dang, they're playing basketball already?
Uh-huh.
It's about Halloween.
Those are your Sundays. Like, all right, football 1. Wait a minute. The Cavs play at 5? All right, better make a quick dinner then. I'm not missing that. But all right, we got the Browns. There is a new kicker in town. Finally, it took all preseason, but Cade York, former 4th-round pick, just the latest of many kickers. Hey, at least it wasn't second round like Roberto Aguayo, who didn't his second year either. Cade York is gone. Dustin Hopkins, who had a great year for the Chargers last season, is in. So are you excited about bringing in Dustin Hopkins, Garrett, to now be the new Browns kicker, at least for this year, because they all come in great. And then if they're not Phil Dawson, they don't last very long. Yeah,
listen, it had to be done. I'm excited because the Cleveland Browns are on the precipice of trying to do something special. They're trying to turn the page. They're trying to be a contender, and to be a contender, you cannot have your kicker going up there and you guys are playing rock paper scissors to see if he's going to win or not. I mean, when you miss that many field goals, and it puts a little more pressure on you when you are a draft pick, but you are basically you beholden to everybody in that locker room. Guys are out there putting their bodies on the line. They playing the game hard, and games come down to 3 points or less a lot of times, or a couple of scores in the NFL. If you look at the preseason games in which the Browns lost, if he makes his kicks, they win those games. Now, granted, it's preseason, and some people say it's kind of harsh to cut the guy after, he's just struggled in the preseason. But outside of kicker, there's no other position you can do that with, because kickers are just dealing with themselves. They're not really dealing, unless the hold or the snap is bad. By all intents and purposes, those have been fine. By all intents and purposes, they've been blocking okay up front. So kicking, it should be following you from place to place. you should make the kicks in practice. You should make them in indoors. You should make them outdoors. You should make them in preseason or regular season. And to me, it just looks like Kate York just lost his confidence. He just lost it. And at that point, once you lose your confidence, the Browns did not have time to just wait on him. They couldn't afford to wait on him. So they went and got Dustin Hopkins. He's about 85% in field goals percentage in his career, about 94% on extra points made. So he's better. Kate York was 74% last year. 70-something% last year. Also, he was above 90 when he was kicking the football as far as extra points go. But, you just had to make the decision to keep it moving because, they couldn't afford to go to the Bengals game, be playing their tails off the entire game, and then lose because of the kicker. So I'm with it. I think he'll be a better upgrade. And if he doesn't get it done, I'm all for moving on from him too. Bye. We got to get another kicker in here because we ain't got no time. We just don't have it.
Yeah, the thing with kickers in the NFL, you don't kick the ball in the upright, they kick you to the curb just as hard. And that kick isn't going wide left. They're going to connect square on with your keister and they'll be out the door.
Totally agree.
And it's tough. Obviously, you're in a division right now with the Ravens, who have Justin Tucker, and Cincinnati, who has an up and coming. Yeah, he's still up and coming, but he had a hell of a playoff run. Evan McPherson.
Yep. Boswell,
he's still there. Yeah, Boswell. Yeah, so you got three. You got three teams that haven't had kicker issues in a while. The Ravens have only ever had one kicking issue, really. It was with Cundiff. He was the only in between Tucker and Stover, so they've been pretty much lucky to be fine. Cincinnati's had their guys. But with that said, we talk about Pittsburgh and with Pickett and Baltimore with Lamar, Joe Burrow and Cincy. Deshaun Watson's been making a lot of money these next 4 years. You made some offseason changes. A lot of newcomers that people are excited about. And a lot of these guys making the 53-man roster and even the ones that got re-signed to the practice squad could end up playing their part. So what has to happen, Garrett? Because it might be crazy, but it's not out of the question. What has to happen for the Cleveland Browns to win the AFC North this season?
Well, most of it hinges on Deshaun Watson getting back to where he is. If he's a 2020 Deshaun Watson, whenever they can win 13 games. If he's not the 2020 Watson, they can lose as many. They could go, down to 7 wins. Something where they're 7-10, or they could possibly be 8-11 or something like that. No, 8 and it would be 8-9. Now the new math with the odd modern games messes me up. But with that being said, more than likely, a lot of people think it's doing mental gymnastics to say that Deshaun Watson is going to be back to what he was. It's not as if he was injured. It's not as if, he had to go to jail for 5 years and not be able to work out eat nutritiously like he was Mike Vick or something. I mean, he just sat out. So, rust is part of that game. But, to think that he's not going to be able to come back and at least throw the football, do what he's traditionally done, I think that's a little bit short-sighted and actually wishing upon a star a little bit because, there's nothing physically wrong with him. It's just about going out there, getting the reps to get back sharp. So for me, I think he will be on that level. And if I'm assuming he's on that level, I just go and look at the rest of the roster. If you plug in a guy that's just leading in completion percentage, yards, and touchdown to interception rate, then you add Nick Chubb and one of the best lines and one of the best defensive players and a bona fide receiver, number one receiver, Amari Cooper, coming off a 1,200 yard year. You get upgrade the defense with Jim Schwartz. Zadarius Smith is another double-digit guy on the opposite side. Dalvin Tomlinson was your biggest free agent, and he's up front. So to me, I look at this team and say, of course they're going to be contenders. And what do you mean how you cannot see us winning the division? They got all the requisite pieces apart to do it. It's just about whether King Stefanski put them in the positions to do it, and is Deshaun Watson back to being Deshaun Watson.
And with all this said, Deshaun, Cooper leading the receiving core, Myles Garrett leading that rejuvenated pass rush. Is Kevin Stefanski definitively gone if there is no playoff appearance for the Cleveland
I would say yes. I listen, I was the first one. I'm going to take credit for this. I say it's Kevin Stefanski. It's gone. He has 6 games to prove himself. And I don't know if the schedule holders, the schedule decision makers really heard that or not, because they hit us with a doozy. You come out the gates at home, you got the Bengals. Then you got a Monday night football game against the Steelers. Then I believe you got the Titans.
Yep, and then the Ravens.
Then you got the Ravens. Come on. That's your first three divisional foes in the first 4 weeks of the season. So it's setting up perfectly that if they don't see what they want to do and they go 1-3, or come out after the bye week and they don't like what they're seeing, they can get rid of him then. So yes, he's on the hot seat. And to be truthful, if you looked at this roster and if you don't think that's fair, ask yourself a question: what will Mike Tomlin do with this roster? What will Bill Belichick do? You think Andy Reid can win it with this roster? All answers, of course. So if you feel like those coaches would get more out of this unit than what your coach would be, that's grounds for making a change, right? I would say, especially in this year where you don't have any excuses. You got some of the best people at each position.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you can't win the big games right out of the gate, there's not going to be a Tebow Mania moment where you just start winning because someone writes a story in a magical book, puts pen to ink, throws it up in the sky, touches the clouds, and then it becomes real. That is very rare. That's something that your favorite authors might be able to do, but that's not what happens in real life. You have to earn it. It's a grind. You'll have a few teams that start horribly and make it, but very rarely do those hot teams keep it going because they didn't do it over the course of the season. So
yeah, they usually, the good teams usually display themselves pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the AFC certainly revamped. Vegas bringing in Jimmy G, Aaron Rodgers on the Jets. Tua should be healthy. You got the Bills. But anyway, from the Browns, we close out with a quick guards mention. It's not been the best season, to say the least. They're at 63-70, just coming off a 92-win season. Naylor remains out, made a lot of trades, moved a lot of pieces. The positive would be the 1 Miles Straw home run, perhaps, which featured a great call. Jay Ram still doing his thing. You got to hope that he doesn't regret that extension. He sticks around. There's no trade request because it's seemingly very easy to trade stars for 7 or 8 prospects. The Guardians have enough young players at this point. So the one Guardians question I have for you here, Garrett, because originally we were going to talk about Francona, but I believe this may be it regardless of what happens. He's been around a long time. So my one question for you is this: grade the season to date, and what do you want to see for the next month to at least give you some spark going into the next season?
I give this season a D. The reason I give it a C, a D the season a D is because there are some really head scratching issues. At the beginning of the season, let's first start with the guys that you brought in. You bring in Mike Zunino at catcher. You lose those $6 million because he turned out to be terrible and washed. So you gave him away for free. You moved on from Josh Bell. He was supposed to be your big power bat, your big power stick in the lineup. You just got him for $30-some-odd million. Guess what? You get rid of him. These guys didn't even make it past the whole season. You look at Savali. You make the trade. You make the trade with Savali. They got to come back in and tell them people were so mad in the clubhouse. They had to come in on a jet and be like, "This is what we're trying to do here. Don't have a mutiny, right?" I met Rosario. He loved in the locker room. Now, I wasn't the biggest Rosario fan, but beloved on the field, beloved by the veterans. They get rid of him, right? So you look at all of those moves and you're kind of scratching your head. Noah Syndergaard, they got him. Guess what? He's not going to be here next year. He's not going to be here. He'll be somewhere else. So you're left with a lot of question marks. Where are your sticks? Why can't the Guardians, for all the great things they do in developing young talent at pitcher with young great arms, why can't you develop any power bats? You take a look at the outfield, and when you look at Quan, you look at Straw, and you look over at Will Brennan. You don't have any power bats. Will Brennan, he's not going to give you that. So I would take Quan. I will move him to center. I need a left hand back. I need a left fielder and a right fielder that can hit home runs for power. And then I would still try to develop my pitcher staff. That's what I'm excited to see about the end of the year. I want to see the Gavin Williams of the world, the Tanner Bobbies, the Allens of the world. Those are the guys I want to see. Now, I don't know how much they'll go down throwing those guys because, they don't want to, deaden their arms. I mean, those guys have been a lot of innings pitched, especially coming up for the minors. But think about it. If you come back next year, I don't know what's going on with Dr. Sticks. But he looks like he's going to be on a DR for the rest of the year. They've shut him down. But if you could come back and you can get him back with Allen, Bobby, and Gavin Williams, you could throw him back in the rotation, and maybe even a Shane Bieber that you want to keep now for, I don't think they're going to get much from him. But if you get those five, we got something. We got a little something. We got another good rotation in the pitching staff. So those are the guys I'm interested in seeing the rest of the year and then into next year.
And that's what everyone wants to see from For the Land, one of the best hashtags in Major League Baseball, regardless of the team name. It is still right at the top. But Garrett Bush, a pleasure having you on, talking all things sports, all things broadcasting. Is there anything else you'd like to plug as we wrap up?
Man, no, make sure if you guys are listening, make sure you subscribe to wherever you can for the Network 216. Shout out to Zach. Make sure you follow at Across Cavs. Make sure you go ahead and get them numbers up. You can follow me at GBush91 on Twitter. You can listen to me in the barbershop 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. every single Saturday. You can listen if you missed the show. You can rewind it on the Odyssey app, so you can take that as well. You can watch me on television. We will be coming to you live for the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show every single day, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Check that out. Me, Adam the Bull, Jay Crawford, Tyvis Powell, Earl Pearl, Mikey McNuggets, and all those guys. We'll be over there 11 to 1. And then, of course, you catch me on the Bleacher Report as well as a contributor for Browns content. Next blog will be up next week. We'll be talking about 5 bold predictions that I got for the Cleveland Browns going into this season. And last but not least, as I take up all the time to pub all of my different spots, you can check me out on YouTube, the Barbershop on the YouTube page. And just type Garrett Bush in, it'll come up. It'll be there. You will see some great videos and videos I do outside of that. So make sure you guys check that out. And that's everywhere you can find me.
You can find him. He's there. He's not playing hide and seek. He's here. He's ready to be found. Look for Garrett Bush at GBush91 on Twitter. Barbershop, the Ultimate Cleveland Show. You know where to find me at Across Cavs on Twitter, at Across the Cavs on Instagram. If you're LinkedIn savvy, look for Across the Cavs. Journey for 1,000. Nah, it's not about numbers. Just plug in. But he's Garrett Bush. Zach Wise. We'll see you next time. Across the Cavs on Network 216.